Hello, salam, shalom, namaste, sastrikal, aloha, hola, ciao, bonjour, buna, привет, mabuhay, and dzień dobry. It's really good to be with you again. And I know you'll be so happy you've joined us today because guess what? You have not just one happiness expert with you today, but two, because today we are joined by Amanda Lindsey, who is the spreader of the happy. And I'm so happy to have you with us, Amanda. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Samia. I'm happy to be here, excited and thrilled. I love what you do, and I'm so thankful to be part of the show tonight. Or today, wherever you are. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And Amanda, please tell us more about who you are and what you do.
All right. So yes, I am Spreader of the Happy. I am also a speaker and an author. I just wrote my first book and launched it called Let's Get Into Shape, Spreading Happiness Across Planet Earth.
I love it. And this is your first solo book. You're
Ah,
part of other multi-author books as well.
yes. And so so I've done three other multi-author books, and they all the chapters that I've contributed have to do with happiness in some way. I call them the Happiness Chronicles. Uh, but I decided, after doing the three, I was like, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to go out there and spread my message solo time. So that's
Yeah.
what I did.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. And I was reading a little bit about your philosophy and your book and what it's all about. Tell us more. So you use this acronym of SHAPE. You talk I mean, it's actually in the title of your book, Let's Get Into Shape, but it's not shape the word, but shape the acronym. Tell us more. What's it about?
Yes, it stands for Spreading Happiness Across Planet Earth. And, I liken it to getting into physical shape because, we've got happiness muscles. And the more we work our happy muscles, the stronger they get, just like when you work your other muscles and you build up and you get into shape. So that's how kind of sort of how it came about. Um, but yeah, it's a It's a mindset. It's a unique way of looking at happiness. First, it's looking at it from the lens of yourself, and then looking at it from the lens of other people. So
Mm.
symbolically, or it's cultivating happiness within, and then sharing it with others.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I actually really appreciate that because this is like one of the big lessons that I've learned in my own journey of cultivating happiness, living happiness, is that you do have to start with yourself in many ways. And it's not enough to just care about yourself and stay focused on yourself. You kind of have to like sort of widen your circle of care and concern in order to continue to be able to grow happier and in order to be as happy as you can be.
I agree completely. It's like it's like it grows when you give it away. You know how a lot of times people like to keep the things that they have because, they're afraid of losing it. But happiness is one of those things. First of all, it's absolutely free. And it's unlimited supply, but it just keeps getting bigger and bigger the more that you share it and give it away.
True. So I know that you share like a bit of a framework in your book and in other contexts where you teach there's like the 5 C's of getting into shape. Tell me a little
Yes.
bit more about that. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode. Hope you're getting value out of it. For your information, this episode has been sponsored by the Happiness 101 program. Are you a change maker, coach, trainer, or healer? Are chains of fear holding you back from making the impact and income you desire? Using a unique combination of positive psychology and the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers, the Happiness 101 program helps you break through your limiting beliefs and manifest the abundance and success you desire with fun and ease. Interested? Book a free Happiness 101 exploration call with me, your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Just use my online calendar link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
Well, first of all, getting into shape is a unique practice because, there's 8 billion people in the world. And so there's really no one way of doing it because everyone expresses happiness, they feel happiness, what brings them joy, all different. And so it's a limitless possibilities right there to how to get into shape. But the 5 C's kind of generally will, I guess, explain how to go about it. It's a guide. There we go. The 5 C's are how I guide you on the journey into getting into shape. And so how you do it specifically, um, that's of course up to you because it's your happiness adventure. But the 5 C's are there for guidance. And they are curiosity, connection,
Mhm.
cooperation,
Uh-huh.
collaboration, and celebration.
You'll have to tell me more about each of the 5 C's. So tell me a little bit more about curiosity.
All
Why is
right.
that the starting point, and why is that so important for happiness?
Well, for me, and I would suggest for everyone is, just to get curious and ask the questions. And it's not it's not just about asking, am I happy? Because a lot of times that's what people ask, and then they just kind of leave it there and they stop it. They're like, yes, I'm happy, or no, I'm not. And that's that could be, I guess they think that's the end of the happiness journey.
Mhm.
But it's actually just the beginning. Because when you go deep down, it's bringing, it's asking those questions. First of all, going inward and asking yourself, what do I desire? What are my goals? What brings a smile to my face? And and then once you get kind of, the general idea there, you move on to the people around you. And a lot of the times we don't ask other people, are you happy, or what makes you happy?
Yeah. Isn't that remarkable? I mean, it's really remarkable. You just made me think about the fact that, positive psychology, which is a subfield within psychology that's focused on studying happiness, focused on studying the positive emotions, the positive characteristics that people have. So, it's like literally the science of happiness, or the study of the psychology of happiness. It was not recognized and as an official subfield within psychology until like 1999.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, before 1999, psychology was the dominant framework was clinical psychology, you know, and clinical psychology, as the word indicates, is like about figuring out what's wrong with people, like diagnosing you with diagnosing diseases in you, like illness in you, like what's wrong with you. And so it's like such a different mindset than asking the question of, hey, what's right with people?
And
You
it was
know, it's
but
like,
what's right with you,
yeah.
you know, and I think about that too. You know, it's almost like sometimes, in greeting people, you say, "Hey, how's it going?" And I like to almost see to when I see somebody say, "Hey, what's good with you?" Because you're
Mm,
kind of you're kind of prompting a positive response where, if you just leave it wide open, hey, how's it going? Oh, people can start listing all the things that are hurting them, all the things that, like you said, that are wrong. But if you're kind of prompted to answer in a positive way, it gets you to start thinking more positively. And that's always, I find, when you start that process of thinking, like the curiosity, that's what gets it going. And it's so important. Another reason too why I find we don't ask ourselves if we're happy or ask other people is because we're either afraid of the answer or we don't want to know.
yeah. Yeah. And if you do know, it's like, do you know what to do if the answer is not what you want it to be? And I think for a lot of people, that's the thing that shuts them off or that they want to avoid. It's like there's nothing I can do about it. And so let's not go there.
Right. No, I completely understand. And that's one of the things that I try to talk about in my book, because it's the rest of the title is 52 Happy Hints to Turn Your Frown Upside Down. And basically it's a journey, a year-long journey that I've written it kind of for to focus on like one hint a week. And it like, it's little things that again prompt you to get that curiosity and get the happiness ball rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really appreciate the curiosity, um, you're introducing into how we get to be happy because yeah, a lot of times, like, I know, like, for me, in my days when I was not happy, like, literally, a lot of it did have to do with my not knowing what I needed to know, in order to be able to help myself be more happy. And so I had to get curious, about, okay, well, what what's out there, what's the learning, what are the answers out there that people have, that they have been using to help themselves be happy. And so it really, like, for me, the journey of empowering myself to take control of my happiness did in fact start with getting curious.
That's what it did for me as well, because honestly, for me, I've been managing chronic health issues since I was 15 years old. And at my worst, I was bedridden, couldn't move at all, and fatigued so bad. And things were just, crumbling around me. And, there really wasn't anything physically that brought me joy because my body was in pain, 24/7. And so it was trying to go inward but outward, if that makes sense, you know?
I know, actually tell me more about that.
Well, the curiosity aspect.
Yeah.
Um, it was kind of like learning learning about a new friend
Mm,
all over, reintroducing myself to um, sparks of joy. Because,
yeah.
what when you're in complete utter pain and exhaustion, you really are focusing on the outward, and there's really not much to be happy about. And so to be able to get that joy back, I just kind of was getting sick of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that
So,
I can relate to.
and so
Um,
yeah, it was really just it was kind of an overwhelming start, but little bits at a time, I would, just notice things that, you know, brought smiles to my face every once in a while, and I'd focus on that. And then those things seem to start being easier to find.
yeah. You made me think about like we all create these stories in our minds about our own experiences, about our past and our history. And I had made up this story about my history and my past that um well, I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. So of course, as a result of that, I experienced deep trauma. And um there's no denying that or making light of that. And at the same time, for a long like when I started to, make the tell the story of, what my experience was in the aftermath of experiencing that trauma, I one of the things that I would talk about is how I forgot to smile. I lost all my friends. And it's absolutely true. That did happen. I literally, other than my brother and my sister and my cousins that, I lived with because we lived as part of a joint family system, I lost every single friend that I had. I was known to be like somebody who or rather I became known to be somebody who was antisocial, didn't like going out, I dressed deliberately in horrible clothes. And my mom would actually, the one of the few things that my mom got mad at me and fought with me about was she wanted me to dress better. And I just refused to dress in any kind of way that like I didn't want anyone paying any attention to my body. I didn't want to look attractive. I didn't want to look nice, and so I would literally fight with my mom to wear my drab, baggy old clothes, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's definite truth to that. But I forgot that even through that really tough period, there were times when I was joyful and when I managed to be happy. And I was reminded of that when um, one day there was this old a photo album that surfaced from somewhere, and it had this picture of me um, laughing, like and rolling, like I was rolling
Oh, I love
down a
it.
sand dune with my sister. And I was like, I had forgotten that memory. Like I had forgotten experiencing that until I saw that picture. And I was like, wait, I'm smiling here. I'm laughing here. And I must have been having fun rolling down that sand dune. Um, and I just blocked it off in my mind because the story I'd made up was so focused on the trauma and the suffering and the hard times that I had experienced. So it was like such a good reminder that, oh no, even through the tough times, we can find moments of happiness. And then, hopefully we can learn to capitalize on them and build on them and, get back to but get back to our happy place sooner than later.
And I find too that's beautiful reminder that, if you if you find yourself in a really tough spot, but you lose hope per se, if you see if you see that like a picture of yourself smiling, or if somebody brings up a memory where you shared joy, you see it, and hopefully you can realize that you can get back there. If you've seen it, if you've done it once, you can get back to that place.
Yeah. True, true. So once you get curious and you start, learning about, okay, what makes me happy, what makes other people happy, and so forth, when does the second C come in? I think that's connection, you said, right?
Yes, connection.
Tell me more
And
about that.
connection's all about relationships. It's relationships, again, with yourself starting, and then relationships with those around you.
Mm,
And, you know, the curiosity builds into that, because as you're asking yourself these questions and asking others these questions, you can't help but start building relationships with yourself and with others. And so that connection starts to form because of that curiosity. And the more connected you start becoming, the easier it is to be happy
yeah.
and to spread it with other people.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is so true. Curiosity leading so naturally to connection, including with yourself. That is such a Tell me a little bit more about your experience with deepening your connection with you. What was that like?
Okay, yeah. So again, with my health conditions, I had pretty much gotten to a point where I lost connection to myself
Mm,
and to humanity. I was just kind of lost everywhere. And for me, what kind of brought me into more connection with myself was seeing there were some very special individuals who kept showing up for me with the the symbolic hugs and smiles, because at the point I couldn't be touched. So real hugs were not available. But um, you know, just having those people show up and keep having those hugs and smiles for me, didn't matter what, mood I was in. It didn't matter how I was treating them. It didn't matter what version of me showed up at all. They
mm,
were always there. And seeing that kind of made me realize and brought me to the place where I started to
mm,
and show up for myself. And so that was the initial like connection part, was
mm.
just those hugs and smiles.
Yeah. Wow. You just made me think of my sister and my mom, but my sister, well, I mean, my mom it's like the difference between my mom and my sister is obviously mom is mom and sister is sister. Like with my mom, she has always been such a loving presence in my life and been such a you know, always there to hug me, love me, kiss me, whatever, feed me, whatever I needed. She's there. But, because she was my mom, I felt a certain sense of restraint in terms of like, especially like coming from my culture, Indian, Pakistani, traditional culture, when you're dealing with your elders, you have to maintain a certain level of respect. It's not okay to scream and shout at your parents or order them around or, that kind of thing. And so I always felt a certain restraint with my mom even though like her goal has always been to be an unconditionally loving presence in my life. But with my sister, and especially because she was my little sister, um, she was one of the only people in my life that I felt very unrestrained around because like as an older sister, I have status, like more status than she does in our culture.
Mhm.
And so I actually use that um I use that position but the way like in my days of when I was like really traumatized. So the thing is like my sister, very much my mom, very much like my mom, is a very, very loving person. She is like heart of gold. She's like exceptionally compassionate. Since she was like a little kid, like you could see these qualities about her. And so she was the other person in my life besides my mom who was like constantly trying to always be present with me and for me in a unconditionally loving way. But with her, I felt more free to like, if I was not in such a good mood, which was often because, you know, um, I would feel free to like push her away, for example. Um, but she kept coming back. And I mean, I don't know if I had been in her situation, I don't know if I would have had the patience. I don't know if I would have had the compassion or the empathy to keep going back to someone who kept pushing me away. Um, but the fact that my sister did that for me, I mean, it's absolutely did change my life as well. And it did help me connect with myself also. I mean, just earlier, actually today, I was talking to somebody else and I was sharing with them how like my sister was one of the very first people with whom when I was in a place where I was like, okay, I want to start improving myself. I want to start improving my relationships. She was one of the first people that I felt free enough to do that with, like try it out. And I was like, okay, sis, here's the real truth. Here's because I not told anyone in my family about the abuse I went through. So she was actually the first person in my family that I told, and I was like, okay. And this is why I've been so distant and obnoxious even. But I want to change that, and can you help me out? And, so sometimes, I may still be rough, but I want to get better and please help me out. And of course, she said, yes, I will do everything I can to help you. And um, it's just, yeah, changed my life for sure.
That's so amazing. It's and right there it demonstrates that connection with yourself then builds on to the connection with other people
Yeah.
because you can trust. And you know, and and for me, the the connection with other people really kind of really started through a pretty pretty tough time for everyone in the world. It was during the pandemic.
Mm,
I I started to see the similarities between what was happening in the pandemic and what was happening with my physical and, with me, with my
mm,
conditions, isolation, anxiety, fear of the unknown,
mm,
immobility. Now, granted, my immobility was, restrained to a bed, but, because of physical reasons, but, limited mobility, people were, confined to their homes. Um, and, financial insecurity. And I realized I was like, oh my God, you know what? It doesn't matter who you are,
yeah.
how much money you have, where you live. We're all connected through pain and suffering. That was what my first connection, I was like, oh my God, and that's when I touched humanity again, if you will, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when I realized that, it was so bittersweet because I was like, oh my goodness, I finally am relating to people again. This is
Yeah.
great. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is how I'm relating to people. I don't want that. And
Mm,
so that's where, Shape came about because I was like, I want my relationships and I want my connection to people to be one of happiness and hope and joy and positivity. And so
mm.
that's where spreading happiness across planet Earth, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make every encounter that I have as meaningful and as joyful as possible.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And it's amazing that, you had that realization. It, wow. I mean, there is like when you find that common ground with others who may be suffering in similar ways. I mean, on the one hand, that is such an amazing experience because you're like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one, who's going through a difficult time. And in some ways, that's like really validating and reassuring. And it can be very tempting to just kind of stay there, like, and just have, it's like, that saying, misery loves company.
Mm, yes.
The fact that you didn't just stay there and you thought, oh, you know what? I want to be the spreader of happiness. I want to relate to others in a more happy way. That is so amazing. That is so amazing.
Well, thank you. I called it my happiness awakening, where, most people have a spiritual awakening. I had a happiness awakening.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because it's like a real thing. You also just made me think about that analogy. I don't know if it's actually a real thing, but people talk about, like if you have a bucket of crabs, uh, the the crabs that are further down will literally pull the crabs that are further up. They'll pull them down the bucket, so none of the crabs are able to escape the bucket because they keep pulling each other down. Um,
Okay.
and it's sort of like, going back to that to that mindset of misery loves company, that where people get um into this mindset of, well, if I can't be happy, if I can't have this, if I can't have that, then I'm not going to you see someone else who has what you would love to have, instead of being like, okay, well, how can I get that? You're like, no, I'll bring this person down instead. So that's like it's like a real phenomena of human psychology that, people can get caught up in. So for sure we can't take for granted um, this other realization of, no, you know what? No, let's not do that to each other. Let's actually support each other and let's actually help each other be more happy.
Oh my goodness, that right there, that is perfect to leading to the next C's. I kid you not. You are a mind reader because it's actually cooperation and collaboration.
Hmm. So
And
tell me more about those.
and basically it's like the crabs. Um it's working it's working with each other and it's working with yourself instead of like the crabs working against each other and working against yourself. And I don't know about you, but for me in the past, I was the biggest obstacle to my own happiness, you know? And so working with myself, I found it's so much easier to be happy than when I, would put myself in the middle and stop, basically, sabotage my own happiness, you know?
Yeah. Can you share an example of what that looks like when you sabotage your own happiness?
Oh, man. Let's see. Gotta think a minute. Guess like, right off the top of my head has to do with one of the jobs that I applied for, or um, I it was when I was working for a coffee shop, believe it or not. So I was a barista, and there was always times when the assistant manager position would pop up, and I would apply, and I would not get the job. And
Mm,
so I was like, okay, well, keep going, It would couple of cycles, and still no go, but I'm still applying. Well, when I get the job, because I do finally, I applied and I get the job, and I go and I start, and I just, I'm like, I really wasn't, well, okay, first of all, I wasn't really sure if I wanted it. I
mm,
had the interview and they offered it to me. I wasn't really sure if I wanted it because when they kind of told me what it was going to entail, I
mm,
was like, I don't know if that's me or not, right? But I looked in the past and was like, I kept getting looked over every time I did this. So I'm going to do it because what if I never get this chance again? What if this is it? This
yeah.
is my last hope. And so I took it, and really knowing full well it wasn't for me.
Mm,
But the whole reason I did it was, I guess, I really don't know why, but it definitely increased my stress.
mm,
Uh, you know, it was absolutely everything I hated. Uh, and yet I did it anyway. And I knew it deep down, but I guess I was trying to prove to myself something. I don't really know.
mm,
But again, putting myself in a position that I know
yeah.
won't make me happy.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I did it. And that's another, positive psychology I get, or, psychology thing to think about with regarding, some things I can get curious about for sure. But again, I just get in my own way.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I mean, I'm just guessing that part of that may just have been that you were following the societal formula for what you're supposed to do. It's like, okay, you get a job at a certain level, and then you're supposed to try and get to the next level up in whatever the positions are in that organizational context. And for you, that meant assistant manager. And then once you're assistant manager, it's like, okay, now let's aim for manager. And then, whatever comes after that. And that's just part of what we're told we're supposed to do. So,
Yeah, and it's real easy to get caught up in that.
yeah, yeah. But you're so right. I mean, if our happiness is going to be our priority, we can't let ourselves get sucked into following these kinds of um, generalized formulas for how you're supposed to live your life. Because, I mean, I'm sure they work great for some people, but there's no way that one way of doing things can work for all of us, given the diversity of our humanity and our needs and our very different characters and all of that. And so it's like, we have to follow our own path. And at least in some things, I mean, I'm sure in some cases, following the society's established pathways will work out just fine. But at least in some contexts, they won't. And so it's like, yeah, let's really listen to our inner inner voices that are telling us, hey, this is not for me.
And thinking about it more and more now, it's being scared
Yeah.
and um, scared to maybe I was scared to truly be happy,
Mm,
or scared to, if I don't do all this, if I don't do what I said I always wanted to do, what do I do next? Kind of, or where am I?
right. Right. A little bit of the fear of the unknown, I suppose, creeping in. It's like as long as you are following a supposed to be proven pathway to success, if not happiness, then at least you're like, okay, at least I know I'm doing some version of the right thing. But if you have to like give that up and figure out your own way, then it's like, oh my gosh.
But what's very interesting is, when it all came to be that point where, I didn't have any job anymore, I didn't have anything, and all there was to find out who I was and what made me happy. It really was, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I had the best time, and I continue to find, I continue to have an amazing time finding out what brings me happiness and what, it's that evolution. So I think, if you are scared, it goes back to that curiosity. It really does.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Now, you had mentioned that two of the C's were cooperation and collaboration. What's the distinction for you between cooperation and collaboration?
Well, they both are all about inspired action towards
Mm,
your happiness,
mm,
taking steps towards happiness in general. But cooperation is focusing individually on individualized goals and
mm,
desires, whether it's you as an individual or like your team members as an individual or like your clients or your friends. It's all just it's an individualized um, working together towards individualized goals and
uh-huh.
desires to bring about happiness. Where in collaboration, it's about shared goals and desires and shared happiness. And so we're all working together in both of them,
Mm,
but one of them is individual goals and the other one is shared.
Yes. Okay. Okay. That is a brilliant distinction and very wise, that, you have incorporated both of those elements because, like we were saying before, it's like while it is absolutely essential for us to work on our own self and our individual happiness, it's just not enough. So we really need both. We need to be working on our own stuff, but also then be part of something bigger that's like going beyond us. So I love that you have that in how you are approaching spreading happiness. That's amazing. So tell me more about the last C.
Ah, yes, it is the last C, but it is not the least important for sure. It is celebration. And actually it's to me that's one of the most overlooked
Mm,
parts of happiness.
mm,
Because and I guess too, we'll go with the work situation, in society's hierarchies, you have this particular position and then it's expected that you strive for the next one and then you strive for the next one. Well, when do you get to enjoy any of it? And that's really what the celebration's all about. It's being grateful and it's being appreciative for every little win on the way to making those goals happen or making those desires, come to fruition
mm.
because it's all about the journey.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with you. The celebration, it's like an expression of joy. So it's like sort of like when I think about it as, like most of the time, like my goal is to be like in a peaceful, calm kind of energy, because that's sustainable. But it's like there's more to life than just always being peaceful and calm. Like you can be in even higher energy states like joy and celebration. Oftentimes, joy and celebration go really well together. The celebration, in terms of like, the one stimulates the other. And so it's like with joy though, I just find that because it's such a high vibration, like I'm not always able to maintain a high level of joy all the time. So I'm like, okay, I'll slip back down to peace. But I do love being joyful, as much as I can.
Oh yeah, and for me, I'm going to be honest. Um, happiness happiness is my expression of love.
Mm,
So whatever word, I don't get hooked on, I guess, the words because I know a lot of people have, like you said, with you have a very distinct definition of what joy is for you, and it's different than calm and peace and happiness. And for me, if if that word and feeling is the same as how you feel about love, that for me, it's all the same. And, so, and again, like, there are different levels to it.
yeah.
And it's not necessarily, you know, it's the same, for me, it's the same entity. It's the same experience. It's just different levels of it.
Yes. Yes. So I agree with you on that. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I make the distinction that I do between the words is actually to recognize that there are different levels. Because like in terms of our experience of happiness, like of the most beautiful lessons that I've been learning is that our capacity to feel happy and or whatever other word you want to use for this kind of really loving, positive emotional state is that there's like there's like so much depth to that experience, and you can keep going deeper and deeper in the experience, and actually our capacity to the to experience these things is actually infinite, in terms of like you could keep going deeper, deeper, or bigger and bigger, and or like whatever the analogy would be that you would want to use. But it's like you can literally be always expanding and growing bigger, or going deeper in your experience of these positive states. And so it's sort of like sometimes our language is very limiting, and so to be like, okay, you know what? We'll try and use some different words to explain, or to express this idea that we can go even deeper in that experience.
And it's amazing. I know like in certain languages, there are very specific words for different types of love,
Mm,
where then like in English, it's love. And again, there there are so many different levels to it.
mm,
And so, I think it's amazing to have as many words as possible to describe the same thing, you know?
yeah. And I actually really loved what you said about like when you're talking about happiness, it's really an expression of love. Uh, that is such a amazingly profound way of understanding what happiness is all about. Because, for sure that's also, I think that is a realization that I've come to more recently, that connection between happiness and love. And like for me, I came at it from a more like spiritual perspective of realizing that, whenever I'm feeling happy, it's because I am able to realize that I'm being loved, like at a spiritual level, like as in God, the divine, our true source, whatever name you want to um, give our source. It's a loving, um, like it's a loving connection. It's a loving energy, and it's always there, loving us and taking care of us. And actually, when we are feeling happy, it's just an expression of that love that we are receiving, that care that we are receiving. And so we are just sort of like channeling it, uh, when we are being happy, or when we are experiencing happiness. And so it's been such a wonderful realization for me, because to be happy because you're being loved is like such a wonderful, beautiful reason to be happy.
Absolutely. And what's very interesting too, one of my multi-author books, it was called Divine Love.
Mm,
And my chapter, it was called Cadillac of Wheelchairs. Oh no, sorry. Finding the Happy and the Crappy, the Cadillac of Wheelchairs, and realizing my source of joy. And what it came to, what what came to me, what I came to realize, is just like you're explaining, is that, you know, that happiness, that that happiness is me. And I am love. I am happiness. And
Mm,
wherever I go, it goes.
mm,
And so it was a very spiritual thing for me to discover that as well.
mm,
And it was, because a lot of the times we look outward for
yeah,
happiness.
yeah,
And yeah, it can sustain you for a while, for sure. But eventually, the what's going to be your true source of happiness is inside.
yeah. Yeah, not only the more true source, but also the more sustainable source,
Yes.
and also the source that, like, if you are interested in being in control of your happiness, to the extent that any of us can be in control of our happiness, it's when our happiness is sourced from the inside that, because the outer reasons for happiness, the outer stimuli, any of it, no, no matter how precious it is for us, but any of those sources can just go away. Like whether it's a person that you love so much and who loves you so much, there are a million different reasons they could leave your life. If it's any object, if it's any environment, it could be taken away from you. Some accident of nature or some disaster, like an earthquake could come and literally, like,
Right.
swallow
Right.
up whatever that thing is that you thought or that made you happy to have in your life. And so all of these things you can lose like in an instant and not be able to get them back, possibly, potentially. And so it's not a very I mean, if that's what you depend on for your happiness, you're kind of going to struggle in your life.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. And um, again, I've experienced that, and it definitely, looking back, it was a struggle. And um, when when you realize that it's inside and that it is a choice,
Mm,
I feel. I
yeah.
feel that, regardless of what's going on around you, you can choose to still be happy because it's inward. It's that source of love. And um, it's not to say that the things around you, you know, are not, oh, it's not to bypass anything. Trust me. It's not to say, la la la, life is good when it's not. It's just choosing to focus on things that are more positive than what's going on around your life.
Mm,
And, for me, an experience with that is when I couldn't move at all. I had, really no place to go. At one point, I was only able to really to move my eyes.
mm,
And so, like, I would go inward. I'd use my imagination and I would focus on somewhere else. I had my happy place in my imagination, and it was a beautiful field of flowers. And, so yeah, around me, things sucked. I'm not gonna lie. That's point blank. That's how it was. But I was able to find the happy in the crappy, and that happiness was going in and, smelling those flowers, looking at all the pretty colors, and, being there in my imagination, because nobody can take that away.
yeah.
That's always with me.
Yeah. Amanda, thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to keep asking you more questions and talking with you. And I'm like looking at the time and I'm like, oh man, I think it's around the time we need to start wrapping up for today. Aw.
Um,
Do you have any
so
last thoughts you would like to share?
Well, I would just like to say that I'm celebrating that we had this beautiful conversation, and thank you so much. Thank your audience, because you know, Shape is so special to me. It's my mission, my passion, and purpose, and so to be able to share it with you guys, um, that just lights me up. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. And for my last reminder, I will just remind our listeners to please make sure you check the show notes because we will be dropping Amanda's links in there so you can connect with her and continue to learn with her and support her mission to spread the happy. That is such a wonderful mission. And yeah, until we connect next time, I just wish you lots and lots of peace and joy.